Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching this film. We have some really interesting people here, and I want to bring them up one at a time and have a little moment with each of them, and we'll get everybody up on stage at the same time. The first person we asked to join us tonight, the reason we have been able to do so many screenings across the country is Mark Frost. Please come up and join us. Ladies and gentlemen, the co-creator of Twin Peaks, the man who learned story structure and how to do this multiple amazing stuff on the set of Hill Street Blues. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Frost. Please. Yes, any questions?
Hi, everybody.
I'm gonna ask a couple of questions. We'll bring people up. We'll have a little chat here, and then there'll be questions from the audience. And the question I've been wondering the last couple of days, we had a wonderful conversation in Florida. There's so much more. There is a 3-part miniseries that will come out someday that has much depth.
25 years later.
25. That's what the plan was. We're gonna do it, and the whole thing will be backwards. The whole movie will be backwards. Catherine's passing and the 7 years that I spent working on this film, a lot of thinking about passing and death and what happens afterward. And then our executive producer, the woman who produced my first 2 films, Donna Dubain, she passed, and then weeks later, David passed. And, we know from the film and from my conversations with David and things he said and written that he believes we're all here and we're all coming back. I know that you're a great student of Carl Jung and Jungian philosophy, and I just wonder if you have any thoughts about what happens after we're gone, and if you have any thoughts about your close friend David and him being gone, and if there's communication or you believe it's possible. I just thought I'd ask you about that.
I hope so. I wasn't raised in a religious discipline. My parents were agnostic bohemians. So I was left to roam free and find what I thought were the underpinnings of human life and what might happen afterwards. And I realized finally that I felt that life does continue, and that we are all part of a human continuum that will, the current administration notwithstanding, continue for quite some time. David and I talked about this a fair amount. I think we shared a lot of the same feelings about it. I'll share a story with you, which I haven't really told anybody. But, the night that we lost David, I woke up at 2:30 in the morning and I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what was wrong. We'd had the fires, and I was at my house here in Ojai, and I had a sudden impulse to go to a place I have at the beach, and walk on the beach. And I'm out there alone, like a lunatic, at 3 o'clock in the morning, walking back and forth across the beach, and finally at about 4, the feeling subsided, and I went inside and I fell asleep on the sofa, and I woke up to my friend Harley Payton, who was one of the writers on the show, saying, "David's gone." I spoke later that day to Sabrina. I spoke to Kyle. I spoke to Michael Horse. And we all spent the whole day thinking and talking about David. I don't know if that has anything to do at all with anything, but it was somehow not surprising to me. I feel and have felt with people that I'm close to often that they're not gone. I can have dialogues with them. You carry them inside. It's deeper than memory. It's part of who you are. And so knowing Catherine and watching her go through this experience, and as Sabrina was saying, we didn't know, we were in Washington filming, we didn't know that we found out, as you depicted so well, very near the end. And David put a lot of work into making those 2 days that we had with her happen. And I remember being on the set that morning. My family was with me. My son, who was then, I don't know, 13, had come up to shoot a small scene in the movie to Washington. My wife was with us. And we had brought David that morning. We'd found a giant donut, a cronut, actually, to be technically accurate. And Travis said, I want to give that to David. And so he presented it to him on the set, and we all had a little piece of the cronut together, and everybody kind of gathered around. And as I remember, Sabrina, I think we were outside. You'd remember better than I do. We were shooting somewhere near downtown. The exact location, I don't quite remember, but I remember about an hour later, David coming up to me and taking me aside and saying, Catherine's gone. And I looked up at Mount Si, that beautiful mountain that we see in so many of the shots from the show through time, and I just started to weep. And then the news spread around the crew, and you know, we all knew it was coming. We knew it was kind of a miracle that she had made it to that point and was able to answer the bell and died with her boots on. And anybody who's been in show business, and as I have my entire life and raised in a show business family, that's what you do. And it felt like that was how she wanted to go. And we did what we could do, and we tried in the writing we did know that she was ill, and we wanted to make that a part of what that storyline was going to be. It hit us all really hard that day. Well, thank you for making the movie. It's brought it all back, and it's quite powerful. I'm pretty stunned by it.
Thank you for this very. I want to make sure we all get up here. So Sabrina, would you join us? Would you come up and join us? Ladies and gentlemen, an extraordinary individual. I said this to her in the lobby, and I started to cry after I said it, and this is the third time I'm saying it. But I think that I just thank Sabrina for what she's done for David, because I think after Catherine, this was the person who made so many things possible. Sabrina Sutherland. We're going to do the Tonight Show shuffle. Yeah. Who's going to be Ed McMahon? Do I have? Okay. What is life like for you? What is the future? There are so many thousands and millions of fans of both of your work and of Twin Peaks and all the other stuff. What's going to happen? What can we expect? Are we going to be able to see more? Is there material we don't know about? Where are we going? And do you know? Do you know? All right, season 4.
We haven't seen each other in a while, so we haven't really had a chance to talk about it. But
well, go ahead. We'll wait.
No.
I don't know how to answer that question, quite honestly. So.
Well, I mean, there's nothing in that we didn't use already.
I know.
And we felt like, I think we both felt, we finished telling the story the last time. There may be ways to fill out the universe, which is something I've always enjoyed doing, but it's almost too soon to talk about it, if you don't mind.
No, I understand. And I'm more thinking about just sort of David's legacy, and I know that you're one of the trustees or the trustee? I don't know what that is.
I am the.
This is the trustee. What does that mean? What will happen? Will we, I understand there's a museum going into Europe, there's an archive happening. Can you tell us a little bit? And if you can't, I'll change the question.
Well, no, but this has been in the works for a while. Two things. One is that David, we've been preparing his archive over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. Christine McKenna and I have been working on that, and so we are going to have that with an institution of some sort. I'm not sure where yet. So there's that, and then there's a museum, a Twin Peaks museum that's in Poland. That is being built, and a David Lynch kind of museum along with that. And they are the ones who bought most of the props and sets and costumes and things like that. So they have the actual artifacts there, and hopefully that'll be, I don't know when that opens, but I know that at the end of this year, and I think you're invited, by the way, in November, it's the Camera Image Festival, the cinematography festival. It's a pretty big one.
Where is that?
In Poland, in Torun. And they're the ones who are opening this museum as well. And that festival, they're having a David Lynch, kind of, not memorial, but tribute. And so that may start the museum. I don't know if it's gonna open then, or they're just gonna announce it. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything.
Don't know, no repeating.
No repeating.
And will you stay on as the trustee for a good while? Is that your plan? And do you have plan on doing other things?
Well, I mean, I'm the trustee until.
It's an ongoing.
It's an estate, yeah, so
Yeah.
I have to handle that, and David gave me very specific things to do, and that's what I'm doing, so.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, let me bring up someone else here that we would not be here without this person who was very skeptical of this project when I first came to her. Donna Devane introduced me to Jenny Sullivan, and she wasn't sure it was the right time, and it took us a long time, so I think it's now the right time. Will you come up and join us, Jenny Sullivan, please? Over here.
Hi, Jenny.
Jenny Sullivan, by the way, is an accomplished actress and theater director, and her father was the wonderful actor Barry Sullivan.
Thank you. All
We got a lot of microphones here.
Yeah. You have a really, that's so great. All right, there?
Yeah,
Next
any
to
place
Mark?
you can sit right next to mine.
What do you want to know, Richard?
So my first question is, are we okay? I mean, did I do okay? Are we still,
Yeah.
you're still here? You came, so I guess you like. When did you decide that we were going to be okay, that this film was going to work out? It's been a long process. There were 65
I think about
interviews.
2 days ago.
2 days ago. Good. Fred Helms saw it, and I guess
See
that was
there?
good.
I've been pushing him a lot, and thank you for letting me push.
You've been wonderful. You've been very supportive and understanding of what the process is, because you've been in this game your whole life. So, the question I have for you is, and it's kind of related. I want to come back to Sabrina about this too. Do you communicate with Catherine?
Oh, God, yes.
Tell me how that works.
Well, I talked to her all through this movie.
Oh, well, what did she say? I mean, can you share this?
Hang in there.
Hang in.
No, I do all the time. I have dreams about her. We just had so many experiences in our life, because I knew Catherine for 50 years. So there was a lot of
Ups and downs?
ups and
Ups
downs.
and downs?
No, we were supporting each other all the way. I mean, she's the person that got me into directing at AFI, and then I got her into a couple plays that I directed, and we got each other through marriages and relationships, and so, but the one line you cut is
Yeah, which one? The only one tell me.
I know, it's
I get
fine.
notes now in front of you all.
I already told you this one.
Oh, okay.
I actually brought it with me, so
Oh.
because we have a transcript of the however many hours that first one.
Hundreds of hours.
Hundreds of hours. But I'm going to read it because.
Oh, we're getting.
No, Richard, you said you liked it, but I see why you didn't,
Okay, while you're looking for that, the best line I've ever heard in a movie was, what begets a legend most? A good rumor?
A good
What
rumor.
becomes a legend most? A good rumor.
Well,
I just thought that was
This
great.
was the other one, and I it's just flat here, but I like the way I said it. But I remember it. I said, we were supposed to grow old together.
Yeah.
She was supposed to be the trailblazer for, do we need a facelift or are we just gonna wing it?
I love that line. And let
But
me
that
tell
was
you,
our relationship.
you didn't need it. Okay,
Huh?
the answer was you didn't need the facelift.
Thank you
look
very
lovely.
much. But she's not here to let's talk about that.
Sabrina, do you have communication with anybody that you've lost in your life? I know you lost someone over the last year. Do you communicate with them? How do you feel about that?
I also lost my mom, so having both of those, and David, they're both quite large people in my life. I feel them around me a lot, and I'm still working at David's office, so I expect him to come walking in or to hear his voice at all times, but it's still very new, so it's difficult, but I like to think he's around. I like to think my mom's around, and but unlike so many people, I've not had any dreams about David. I've had dreams about my mom, but not David. But everybody I've met who I've talked to has had a dream about David. I'm quite jealous.
There's a line in the original David interview that shocked the hell out of me. I didn't use it in this. I think it may be in the 3-part. But I said to him, do you dream about Catherine? And he said, oh, I don't remember my dreams, Richard. And I was like, wait a minute. The man who we all considered all of it's about a dream doesn't remember his dreams and particular people in them. To me, I answered that in my own head as, well, you're dreaming while you're waking, you're daydreaming, you're going into that place that meditation brings as well. But dreams.
There was, it put me in mind, particularly the way you finished the film with the time that those last few hours and days with Catherine, and it reminded me, and you'll remember this, that we began the return almost a full year before we started actual physical production by shooting a scene with my dad, Doc Hayward, on Skype. My whole family was at our family place in upstate New York. My brother was there, who had worked on the show and wrote some scripts. My sister Lindsay, an actress. My son was holding his cue cards as he was reading. And it was the same thing. We were on a computer. David was there, and I can remember him just saying, "No, Warren, no, not say this." It was like, and he was being a trooper, and it was, and we'd written a lovely scene, knowing that he probably wouldn't make it to the finish line. We lost him in 2017, and that was the last scene he ever shot.
Oh, wow.
And it was the first scene that we did, so it was in a funny way a kind of bookend to Catherine.
I have in the 3-part, there's a whole little section with photographs of your great grandfather and just all sorts of stuff about docs, and
Well, yeah, I mean, Calhoun Memorial Hospital, which was that's my mother's maiden name, and her father was a doctor, my father's father-in-law, and so the character was kind of based on him, and he played him, so there was a nice kind of symmetry to all of that as well.
I want to bring up Ronald Eng. Please come and join us. Ron Eng is a post-production sound mixer who worked on so many David projects, including The Return, and has been so generous with us, with his time and this beautiful mixing that he's given us. Thank you, buddy. No, you got to sit over there. I'm the only one that has to sit in the plastic with them.
Well, Johnny Carson didn't have to move.
He didn't have to move, that's true, that's
Behind the
true.
desk.
That's true.
I think they ran out of microphones.
Well, here, you got this one, I'll take that. So the question that I have for you is, I worked with David, we did 3 projects together. I was very little involved other than setting up, I don't know, Jack, but then I did Mulholland Drive, which was just a day on the set. And David used to watch me years and years ago, 45, 50 years ago, do improvised verse. So we had this collaborative relationship, and the energy that he gave me on the set of Mulholland Drive is what I felt I was able to give him back when we did this interview. It was an hour and a half. It was just so intimate. It's so much fun, and there's so much more there than in this film. But we weren't working with him every day. We weren't writing with him all the time. We weren't close friends or buddies. We were people who recognized each other. We kept running into each other in various places over the years, and strange places. You got to work with him every day for long periods of time with minute little changes in sound. So would you talk to us a little bit about David, and about if you have stories about David's reaction to Catherine and the shooting and the sound and how that all worked, just on that day-to-day kind of intimate level?
Well, I have a million stories about David because I spent a lot of time with him. Just in certain, it would go 5 years or something like that, and then we'd spend, and that's the way it is in my business in post-production sound. You see people, you pass them in your life, and then all of a sudden you're working together like for months at a time, every day, and then you don't see him for a while. But that was my relationship with David. Oh, sorry.
You gotta tell the sound mixer to
Yeah.
bring the microphone closer to the...
And the only thing I remember, because I never met Catherine, I'm sorry to say, because it sounds like she was a wonderful person to know, but I just remember there was one time, I think it probably was when we were doing one of Catherine's scenes, and I could just tell that he was pretty broken up, that she was no longer with us. Because by the time I got to see the scene with Catherine, she had already passed. Right, we didn't start mixing until
A year later.
yeah, year later. So, so that's all I can really say about that. I can say, I can tell you my favorite David Lynch story is, or one of my favorite ones is when we were doing Mulholland Drive. A good friend of mine actually got me the job. Was a production coordinator, and when we started the final mix, Mulholland Drive was supposed to be 14. It was 14 reels long, right?
Which is how long in time?
It's like almost 3 hours, and so so it's broken up into 14 pieces, and we started working, I think right after the holiday, January 1st, and we started working. We had like 2 weeks to do 14 reels, and so we started working, and at the end of basically near the end of the 2 weeks, Spike was her name. It was a funny name for a girl, but she comes walking in just to check up on us because it's getting close to the end of the mix, and she goes, "So how's it going?" And David goes, "Great, we just finished reel 1." And of course you can see Spike's face. She's like pale white, and David just said, "I don't care. We're gonna keep going. I don't care how long it takes. I'm gonna pay Ron out of my own pocket." And we mixed for 3-4 months, something like that. And like you say, it was like you felt like you were dubbing the film a frame at a time because it was that much detail. And we had the same amount of time on The Return too, which was great. And when they first came to me and said, "Oh, we're going to, Sabrina, I think, told me, it was like, it's going to be 9 episodes, right? It's going to be 9 episodes and maybe 10 or 11. And I was working on another show, and then I kind of rushed on, we were getting ready to mix, and she goes, "Oh, by the way, it's 18."
I want to bring up someone else, but do you have any questions for each other before I bring up David Israel?
Nothing we want to talk about.
I completely understand. I've asked a very good friend of mine, David Israel, to come. David Israel, we met him when we crowdfunded this 7 years ago. He just jumped in and, took a big position with us and donated all this time, because David does the Twin Peaks tour up in Snoqualmie and North Bend. And we met just briefly when he came down to Los Angeles just after we raised this money. And then about 4 or 5 months ago, I guess September, we went up to North Bend. I wanted Alex to be able to see the original site. And David, we let David know we were coming, and he gave us a tour. And I recommend this for you, Mark, and you kind of know the locations. And Sabrina, you know the locations. You all know. The tour is wonderful because you get into a black Suburban that looks like an FBI car with David Israel, who you meet in a minute, dressed kind of Cooper-like but self-effacing, and you drive to these locations with a great sound system, and driving into Renette's Bridge with Angelo Badalamenti's music playing in this sound system, and it's just a wonderful experience. And I asked David if he would come and sit in with us and talk a little bit about the fans of Log Lady and Twin Peaks. So come on up here and join us, David. And while you're coming up, I have a special thing I want to do. Where are you? There you are. Come on up. Is it possible for a moment to get the house lights, just for a moment? A little bit of the house lights. Come on up and sit down. David Israel, ladies and gentlemen. Can I have just a little bit of the house? Is that possible? Because there are so many Coulsons in this room. I really would like all the Coulsons just stand up so we can see just some of this clan. Would you do that for us, Coulsons, please? Olivier's and Coulsons, there's 1, 2, 3, I don't even know. That's Connie over there, who's so important in the film. And where's Claire? Claire Olivier, right over there, who's responsible for the charcuterie and the cookies. And this gig and the variety, and there's just so many of them, and more. There are more out there. Thank you. Right, you can bring them down. So, David, yes. Tell us what it's like to dress up as a pseudo Cooper and meet people from all over the world. And what do they ask you about? And tell us what are they anticipating with this film in particular?
Everybody's been massively excited about this film for years. Obviously, getting to do what I do is such a huge honor, and thank you, both Sabrina and Mr. Frost. Without them, I wouldn't be who I am today. But the fact that I get to meet so many just amazing people from all over the world, literally worldwide, pretty much every single day. Massive Twin Peaks fans, massive David Lynch fans, massive Mark Frost fans. It's really something else, and every day is like a new day for me. It's never the same. Every tour is a new tour.
Well, and you grew up there and found these. This wasn't your business, right?
No. I was 16 when the show first aired, and I fell in love with it like everyone else. And for me, all the locations, as I'm sure a lot of these people were kind of like their own characters. I wanted to know where everything was.
And on that mic.
But of course, there was no internet back then. So every couple of weekends or so, myself or me and some friends from high school would just drive up there and drive around all day looking for filming locations. So after roughly 4 years of doing that, that's how I ended up finding everything. And then about 9 years ago, I had some friends in town from Germany. One day they didn't have any plans. And I said, well, hey, I'm gonna go to Snoqualmie Falls. It's absolutely beautiful. I mentioned that's where they filmed Twin Peaks. And they freaked out and said, oh, we love Twin Peaks. So I said, great, I know the spots. I'll show you guys around. On the way back, my friend's wife says, that was amazing, you should do this as a business. No one else was doing it. I still can't believe it. But yeah, that's how the whole thing got started. And it's a dream come true. Dream come true.
All right, I'd like to open this up for questions. If anybody has a question, we got lots of mics up here. Here we go. Take this mic from me. Okay. I'll take David's. We'll pass it. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. I wanted to ask Jenny if there was anything that you felt like Catherine would have wanted to say to us as the audience, or anything you felt like she might have wanted portrayed to us?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. She cared about her audiences so much. And this, as a theater actress, as the log lady, in everything that she did, that she really wanted you to follow your dreams and embrace life the way she did.
Love that. Can I ask one more
Yeah, go.
question? So this is to maybe more so Mark and Sabrina, but whoever. I'm really interested and in love with the Log of Lady intros, and I know those came after. I've only seen Twin Peaks with the Log Lady intros, so to me they're so crazy and they kind of predict what's going on. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about writing those statements and how they informed the story.
Yeah, I mean, when we were all heartbroken, obviously, when the series was canceled the first time. The first syndication that picked up the show was Bravo, and it was David's idea to do these little intros with Catherine for every episode. And so he shot them, I think, over two or 3 days.
Yeah.
And he and she worked on it together, and that's where they all came from. I don't know that they're widely available. Are they on any of our extras?
They are on the extras.
On the big set?
Yeah, I think starting with the missing pieces, we were able to get them.
Okay.
And
So if you're looking for them, that's where you can find them.
Oh, we have them.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
We got them.
There'll be a quiz on this later.
Like I could probably. I don't know if anybody wants to.
Next question, anybody? There's a gentleman. All right. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman in the blue sweater, this is David Berger. This is a man who restored this theater started restoring it 4 years ago. His generosity to bring us here is extraordinary, and he's a fan of, his first film was Mulholland Drive in this theater since he took it over. But he's also a major fan of Sabrina and of Mark Frost, who lives here in Ojai. So thank you, David. Thank you. What's your question?
Hi, thank you so much for making this film. It's very beautiful. I personally have also lost somebody in my life to cancer, my oldest sister. One of my favorite Log Lady lines is, of course, from the introductions, which is, "One day the sadness will end." And has that been informing your grief, not only with Catherine, but also so recently losing David himself? Has that line kind of been ringing in your mind lately, as it has been with mine?
You're asking all of us? Because we all probably have. You know, it does with me. This film has changed my life for sure. Just hanging out with so many intelligent people who cared so much about this inspiring woman. Been an extraordinary experience just understanding my own life and death and passing. So yeah, that line comes up, that the sadness will end. But to be honest with you, I decided, when I was in Cannes, I said this recently in an article, when I was in Cannes for the 2001 Cannes Film Festival that Mulholland Drive played at, I came separately because I had 2 films in the marketplace, and my band, I had a 14-piece band that opened the market. It was fabulous Cannes Film Festival for me, right? And then I ran into David the next day, and he invited me to come, and everybody of that entourage was doing TM. And to be honest with you, I was kind of like, this is a little weird. It's a little culty. I don't know. But after I did the interview, sitting with David for an hour and a half and hearing the story about Catherine and, you know, the red fish and all of it, I decided that I wanted to try practicing TM because I thought it would help me understand David and Catherine. I was also going through my own personal life transitions, and I thought it would be useful for me. And I have to tell you, that's another aspect that's completely transformed, not completely, but massively transformed my life in coupling sort of the introspection and the calmness that TM brings to me, at least, about each moment in the day and just sort of how I'm in it and I'm in a larger cycle. That coupled with working on something so much about death and so much about life and squeezing each moment out from really intelligent, creative, articulate people, so many of them sitting on this stage, it just, I just see it sort of a little bit more openly. I look at all of us, and I can see the children, and I can see the old people, and I can see the death. It's a wider cycle for me, so I feel enriched by it and more comfortable with it, as David seems comfortable with it. So, yeah, it's for me anyway. How about you?
I'm sorry, I'm so in awe to be up here. I completely forgot what the question was.
The
Just being
Well,
honest.
let me answer for you.
Yes, please.
Please.
Nobody gets out of here alive. And when you get to a certain age, that's part of the deal. It's baked in, and you start to lose people. And sometimes they're really important people. And it really, really hurts. I lost my mom in 2022. We had always been meaning to do genealogy together, but she was back east and it was COVID, and she was in a nursing home, and I couldn't get back to see her. So we started talking about it over the phone, and when she passed, I started undertaking our family genealogy. And when you start to see a line of human beings that, in my case, go back to the 13th century, you realize this is how it works. There are waves of people who come, and there are waves of people who go, and we are part of it. And there may be such things as genetic memory. There may be things like karma that come into play. There may be family traditions and lineages that linger, and you're part of it, and you see all those people lined up 2 by 2 down through the begatting and the begatting, and you go, okay, well, that's where I'm going to be someday, and hopefully it's going to continue past me in the same way. And there's a comfort in that, I find. And we're all going to have to work with that when we get there. And Catherine was exceptionally brave, and let's hope we can all find that kind of bravery when the moment comes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And then I've got one for Sabrina.
Hi, it was a great documentary. I loved it. Thank you. My question is the original log anywhere? Is it saved?
I can answer. Jenny wants to answer. Jenny has the actual
I can
dope on
speak
it.
to the log. The log has been on many journeys since. The log was in, well, Catherine always used to like to say it was in, cold storage, and all. So it was in her basement.
It was in Chris Moore's basement.
No,
No?
this is before.
Oh, before that.
Before, show's over, the log's there, and then all this, we're gonna film, we gotta get the log. The log, I think, ended up in the closet, and then the log came out for filming. And and it really is quite wonderful to hold it. It really, it has all the feeling that you think it should have.
Well, when I came up to Ashland to shoot, Jenny was of course there, and we did an evening with Timmy and a couple of the people that were there, Jenny,
Annie, and Chris.
And Chris was there, and it was shot by the same crew that you saw talking about shooting Catherine's scene. And at one point, Jenny brought out the box that had the log, and they unwrapped it. And honestly, I didn't want to touch it. I just thought, if David finds out that we unwrapped the log, I don't want him pissed at me. So we're filming this, and I'm standing over in the corner for fear. And then you packed it up and drove it down to LA.
Yeah, I drove it to LA because I know David wanted to make a 3D of it.
Well, he wanted to make a mold originally, right? Originally it was going to be a physical mold.
Anyhow, and then somewhere in the middle of that, the fabulous young man that Zoe had just started seeing when Catherine was dying, and they got married. And so Zoe said, I'd really like to have the vlog at my wedding. So I said, okay, here we go. Now I had driven it down, and it was always like I spent the night in a hotel. I took it out of the car, it came into the room with me. And then I got the log, and then I think there's a one-woman show called The Travel Log here, but I got the log, and Catherine never wanted to check it in baggage, so I thought, oh, I gotta carry this log on the plane. Are they going to let me carry the log? So I had the log all wrapped up. I had pictures of Catherine holding the log. I think I had a TV guide. I mean, I just had proof of, this is okay. And they didn't even think twice about it. But Rick Baker, who is also a good friend of Catherine's, was
He's
on
a
the
creature
same.
maker.
Yeah, was on the plane, and he was so excited. Everybody wanted to hold the log. And we went to the wedding, and the log sat underneath my seat, and then after the wedding, it sat in front of the bride and groom. It was so sweet. It was really, really sweet how Zoe it was Zoe really embraced it. It was such a push-pull, the whole thing for her. And so the log went to the wedding, and then I said, here, take the log, be careful with it. And then David wanted it again to get another copy. So I brought the log back down, and so the log is currently with Zoe, and she came up with this beautiful idea, and I'm hoping it all works out. We're talking to all the appropriate people about it. She lives in Portland, and there's the World Forestry Museum there. And she's been very upset about all the cuts to the federal workers and stuff. And she wanted to do something for this museum. And she initiated a discussion with them about, a couple of weeks, the log is going to be under glass if we can work it all out. And it's not going to be a special charge this or that. It's just as admission, you get to see the log during a very special, and they do amazing work.
Yes,
I would look up this website of this place. They're just amazing. So she's taken on the mantle of her mom.
Yes.
Which is so cool.
Yes. Which reminds me, I haven't seen them. Do we have the glasses, Claire? David's getting them. So, ladies and gentlemen, the other day, for me, I got 4 people sitting in a balcony behind me telling me that it's going to be okay and I should just sort of ride this river that's starting to flow. And that's Catherine and Donna and David and another friend of ours, Cab, that just passed away. But little funny things have been happening since I started this project. And before we finalized raising the money, I was kind of distraught. I thought we weren't going to make it. And I started talking to Catherine. And I kind of vowed if we raised the money that I would keep talking to her. No commitment for her to talk to me. And so I've done that. And I've watched these little synchronicity things happen constantly. The other day, we're talking about Zoe, and we're talking about the museum, and we're going to do a screening in Portland. And originally, Zoe had volunteered to bring the log to the screening. I'm not sure that's going to happen. So we started talking about, alternate ways that we can bring pieces of Catherine to the world as we do this. And we were talking about the red glasses, all of which you got cookies made of in that shape. And we're talking, and Alex has like 20 pair on a t-shirt that we were looking at on Zoom, and we're doing all this red glasses stuff, and we decided to order little ones, all this stuff. And the next day I get a call from Claire. Everybody in the whole team is freaked out because Connie was walking in the house and decided that she needed to look for something in the closet, and what did she find? These are them. The actual Catherine glasses. So as we travel around the country, maybe they'll let me take it someplace, I'm not sure. What time? Do we have a couple more time for a couple more questions? Yes, David? Okay, go. I've got a microphone for this man, come on. Here.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. This was extremely moving and profound. I I hate it when people say something's a question, but it's a statement, but that's kind of what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
It seems interesting that we're still so human-centric in our narrative. And the word shaman was thrown out with the log. And I think that maybe my question is, it seems to me that David and Catherine were very in touch with the animistic nature of the log as a totem, that's one word, and that in Twin Peaks place, non-humans aren't necessarily the biggest characters. Our humans aren't necessarily the biggest characters in Twin Peaks. The mountains and the trees and the waterfall and the non-human and the place, for me at least, are more equally profound and powerful. And so I think it's interesting, and also when we think about trees, we're talking about grief and loot and death and rebirth, and that's what trees and logs are doing in that place constantly. I mean, William Blake said, I said to the worm, thou art my mother and my sister. And I feel like we're skirting around the power of the log as an animistic, shamanic thing. And I also don't love the idea of it under glass, but whatever.
Okay, well.
I mean, you're talking about the sacredness of carrying this log around, but then we keep talking about people and not logs and trees and the shamanistic tradition. So that's my question. How do you think, I'd like to hear anyone respond to that.
Well, I'd like to hear Mark Frost respond to it and phrasing it maybe, or looking at it from this point of view. I like the idea of talking about the animistic aspect of the log and trees and water. And could you address that? But could you also address maybe the differences or the similarities in the way you and David conceived of those things when collaborating on this script, the scripts?
I think David and I both agree that the world that we inhabit is a living being, and that everything in it is connected, and that we have lost touch with an ancient knowledge that said there are spirits that inhabit every plant, every blade of grass, every tree, every rock, every wisp of cloud, every ocean, every pond. And that was something we all felt when we were on location in Washington. I can remember sitting with Michael Horse, who's not a particularly religious person, but we were shooting out, it was where we were doing that bit out by the river to the east of town, remember? It was a beautiful location. And Michael said, this is where the magic is. I can feel it. And he was pointing to these low ferns and the kind of soft grasses that underlie the bottom of a canopy, like in an old rainforest. And so, of course, everything is alive and everything is connected. And if we're going to go on wantingly destroying the natural world that gave birth to us, we're not going to be here very long. So I take your point, and I think we all have to be our own shamans if we can manage that in our life, and we've got to find a way to, as Joni Mitchell said, get back to the garden.
Another question? Go ahead.
So I wanted to ask Mark, in The Secret History, you describe kind of a stage in which these two opposing forces kind of exert their will on the planet. And I think first, I do have a question after this, but I think, just keeping it to the entertainment industry and movies and writing, you look at the world around us and you look at where the money's going, and it's disappointing to say the least. And so I just wanted to say, thank you guys for pushing the work that you did so that it's there for us forever. Because it's really powerful. And then following up on that, the eulogy that you wrote that Margaret says in the final dossier is one of the more powerful things I've read recently, and I was just wondering if you could speak on that process about writing, maybe since this event is about Catherine, if you could talk a little bit about the Margaret backstory and just that process of writing those tidbits.
I'll go back and for 1 second, because I'd worked on a documentary when I was first starting in the business about the poet Robert Bly, and one of the things he said to me really has stuck with me all my life. And I said, what do you hope will happen to your work in the years ahead? He said, a poem is a light that you leave by the side of the road. And I thought, if there's a way that you can do that with the kind of work that I hope to be a part of someday, that's how I would like it to be viewed. If you can leave something behind you that speaks to people. This is why David and I were the same way. We did not want to overinterpret this work for anybody. People will constantly ask, well, what did this mean? And what were you trying to say by this? And I say, well, what do you think it meant? What did it mean to you? I mean, that's how David and I approached the whole idea. This is where we really met as two minds of this is the purpose of art in a person's life. It asks you to ask yourself, to look inside and say, what is this telling me about life and myself that resonates in me? And that's where you get the dichotomy of show and business getting in the way if it just becomes about the business. And sadly, this is an arrow that tips both directions. Right now we're tipped pretty hard toward business. And that's not good for anybody. You need art in your life. You need to speak to your own spirit through the medium of artistic work. And that's been as old as time. It started with shamans recreating the hunt around the fire. It went to the Greeks, telling the stories of the gods and the humans in those amphitheater in Hellenistic Greece, and it's come all the way to us and the theater work that we do now. If anybody went to see Hamilton in the first 6 months of its run, you went, my God, I feel alive again, because this is a new way of looking at the world. That's what we want our work to do. And I always tell anybody who wants to do this for a living, okay, well, what do you want to work on? You want to work on the show or you want to work on the business? To get to work on the show, you got to do some of the business, but you got to find the balance. And I hope that answers your question.
I have a question for Sabrina. You have a wonderful moment in the film where you talk about the process on the set and how people are ignored or yelled at, and that it was different on the set with David. And I have this theory, which I can't prove, and I'll tell you what David said when I asked him about it, that Catherine's training at Disneyland, working in the as an actor, walking around one of the characters, but also helping run the Aunt Jemima Pancake House, which her dad Bud had taken over. There's this wonderful shot that we decided not to use, but you see Catherine standing in front of this colonial building, and she's dressed in a waitress's outfit, and to her right is 15 or 20 beautiful young white men and women, and to her left are 15 or 20 beautiful white men and women. At the end is her father, and at the other end is her mother, and at the bottom of the diamond, sitting on a chair, is Aunt Jemima. And I believe, I mean, it's an aspect of Disneyland that was, a little different in terms of racial equality years and years ago. But I've always felt that experience, that hospitality experience, and the experience of being a character, I've done a lot of environmental theater in my time, and interacting with people directly, you really have to get into the character and find a way of interpreting everyday life through that character. So I've always felt that Catherine influenced David during Eraserhead. You obviously weren't there, you don't know, but during Eraserhead, that vibe, that theater vibe, where in theater you're all dependent upon each other. If the light doesn't happen, the cue doesn't happen, you can't move forward. If your partner doesn't say the line, if the prop isn't there. So everybody in the theater production is really, really important and key. And we're taught as theater trainees and actors, you know, that you don't mess with that. You get there on time, you sign in, you do your job. And that generosity of spirit, that collaborative nature, I think is very much from Catherine, and it seems to be existent in all of David's work. And I'm just wondering if that was an influence, you think, from Catherine, from the Eraserhead days, and if you saw it as Kyle kind of mentioned, if you saw it also on the set, did she have that kind of community feel when she was working on the set with David, Twin Peaks?
Well, definitely with Catherine being there, Catherine was like that, so you definitely felt it. You know, I worked with her outside of just David being there, right? Because there are a lot of directors on the original series during that time, including Mark. So, yeah, she had that effect on people. She really, I wouldn't say a mother hen, but it was kind of like just very generous and very, you know, welcoming to everybody, and really made things happen. So I mean, that really was her personality. And I do feel, I don't know if it is because of Catherine, but I know that David's work on Eraserhead really is something, or was something, that he always wanted to go to. So even on this last Twin Peaks, he wanted a small crew. He loved that real kind of family feeling. That's why he was so, you know, he knew people's names and he wanted to work like that. And if that came from Catherine, that's wonderful. But that is how he liked to work, for sure.
Do we have time for one more question? Does anybody got a burning question? I can't see. Okay. Yes, we got one question in the back. Thanks for saving my ass there. What have you got? Can we get a microphone to that person? Thank you.
Okay, I do just have a quick question for Mark. So I just wanted to know, it's just like a rumor, but I want to know if there was any Ojai in Twin Peaks at all, just with like the supernatural element and the native magic and stuff. I don't know if it's just a rumor. And then maybe if like Ojai meant anything to Catherine, because it's Catherine's night. Yeah.
A lot.
I would say, I mean, Ojai is a very spiritual place, as you probably know if you live here, if you're open to it. There's some legendarily amazing influences that have passed through this valley over time, including Krishnamurti, just to name one. Mayor Baba was here for a short period of time. I mean, there's something going on here, and it was to talk to a Chumash elder about what this valley meant to them, and you'll hear the story. But I don't know any specifics about Catherine.
Well, Catherine, her second marriage happened here in Ojai, and up at Wheeler Hot Springs.
We have a picture of Catherine in the hot tub at Wheeler.
Yeah,
Hot
I know, I
Springs.
took that picture.
You took that picture.
Anyhow, so Ojai had a very important part in Catherine's life, and I think there were a lot of Coulsons here, and I think it's called the Lavender Inn now, is where a lot of the wedding parties stayed, but we were up in the mountains, and it was quite a party. You didn't use the picture though, David, playing with the Coulson family band.
It's in the 3-part.
Okay, all right. But anyhow, yeah, they loved Ojai. I lived here for 6 years. I don't even know. Well, anyhow, never mind.
I think we're going to wrap this up. I personally want to just thank you, all of you, for coming, for staying, and thank our illustrious panel for being just so open and fun. Sabrina Sutherland, Mark Frost, Jenny Sullivan, Ronald Eng, David Lee Israel. Really big shout out to David Berger and this whole organization of all of his people, to Alex Shuron for her beautiful art, for Jane Aldechet, who's not with us, and Claire. Thank you all. We're really, really glad you were here. Thank you.